So I am Technical Sergeant Dasher. I'm an instructor at the 335th, a female instructor. And today you're here to learn about how leaders are built. If you read the description, it's a little bit of a different way of thinking about leadership. Some of us have been through different courses, right? I see some NCOs in here, I see some airmen. You're going to go through some courses, you're going to do some things, people are going to tell you about leadership. And I started to look at it a little differently because I didn't like the answers I was given. So that's kind of what this is about. When we talk about leaders, some of us and some people are just born with these certain skills. Or do they develop them? It's a really tough question. You hear it all the time, right? So, are leaders born with it or do they learn? What do you think, sir?
I think you learn it.
You think you learn it? All right. What do you think?
I think it's both.
Both? I like it. Back row, give me somebody. What do you think?
It's a combination.
Combination? Okay. All right. Now, how many of you have met an airman, somebody junior to your rank, who just has it? I mean, there's just something about it. Like, right away, you sense it, you see it, you work with them for just a little bit, you talk to them, and you're like, I don't know what you ate this morning, but I want some of that because they just got it. I see some head shaking, right? You've seen it. It's a pretty amazing little thing. Now, on the flip side of that, how many of us have had senior leadership that couldn't lead their way out of a brown paper sack? Why are you guys laughing? That's not us. Yeah. We've seen it too, haven't we?
Yes.
Now, it's a tough thing when we talk about the it factor because what is it? Ma'am, what do you think it is?
And being a leader,
Yeah.
confidence is one of them.
Confidence? Okay. Sir, what do you think? What do you think the it factor is to leadership?
Responsibility.
Responsibility? Okay. There's a ton of different things when we try to define what it is. And one of the more interesting things is that we all have a different opinion. Same with leadership. All right? So what do you think when you talk about a leader? What's something that you say, these characteristics are something I really look for in a leader?
Probably how influential they would be or charismatic the leader.
Okay. Back row. Somebody give me something. What's something that you say when you talk about a leader who's got it? What's characteristic they have?
How they approach a problem. Nothing's really out of their scope. They're always ready to tackle anything, even if they're not technical.
Okay. You were raise your hand. Go for it. What do you got?
Yeah, but like they should be able to do what they say.
They should be able to do what they say? Okay. I agree. And one of the more interesting things about leadership, especially when it comes to, just defining it, is who's right and who's wrong. Which one of those people, of your opinions of what you thought was good leadership, was right and which one's wrong? You can't say, because that's your beliefs, right? How can I dictate your beliefs? That's not something that I can do. And one of the problems I have with leadership in general, and especially, not necessarily going to badmouth it bad, but in the Air Force, we try to tell you what is good leadership. And we tell you these are the things that make a good leader. But we don't tell you why, how that actually works. We just tell you these are the traits you have to have. How many of you have been through ALS, NCOA, Course 15, Course 14 even? All these different classes. And they're going to tell you this is what leadership is. Well, that's really cool. They tell you that these are the characteristics they do, but they're trying to dictate your beliefs then. And it's really a fallible thinking because leadership varies from individual to individual. I also agree. I think a leader is somebody strong, charismatic, who's willing to stand up and take charge. But there are other things too, like you have to be a great follower and you have to be able to listen. But yet some people say, well, a leader needs to be a great follower or a great listener first rather than being charismatic. So who's right and who's wrong? You get into that really, it's interesting. So rather than telling you what leadership is and how it works, I'm going to tell you about the biological effect that occurs with leadership. Because I can break down a lot of the things that they're talking about when they say a leader does this and that's supposed to be a good trait of a leader. A leader's supposed to do that. What they're really doing is they're affecting you and their subordinates physiologically. And we can go scientific with it and break down as to why. So that's what we're going to try to answer. It's 4 chemicals. 4 major chemicals, the big players in your body that we're trying to work with when we deal with leadership. Endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. And then we've got one really bad one we don't want, which is cortisol. And we've got funny stories and examples of all of them. And we'll go through everything. So, endorphins. This is one you should all be familiar with. Endorphins' sole purpose is to mask physical pain. How many of you ever gone on a run? Been doing something physically draining, and all you can say to yourself is, oh my God, this sucks so bad. How much further do I have? Where's the finish line? This is so terrible. But you can keep going. You can keep pushing. They talk about the runner's high, right? You've heard that? That's all it really is. It's an endorphin release. It's something that's been around since caveman times in order to help us hunt. Because we start chasing our prey, and yeah, it's painful, it hurts, we're running long distances, we're doing this, but we know that we have to do it. It's a survival thing. How many of you have ever done that, where we talk about physical activity, where you're waiting for the end, you're counting seconds at time, and then when it gets done, like 20, 30 minutes later, you're like, man, I feel great. I could do that again. No, I wouldn't, but I could if I had to, right? You feel really good about things. And then the older you get, when you're like my age bracket, the next day you wake up and you feel like someone beat you when you were asleep with a baseball bat. Yeah, that's when the endorphins wear off. But when they're working, they mask the pain of what you're doing. Now, they help to drive you to succeed, and they help a lot of things, but it's also very selfish. And that's one of the problems with endorphins. Because I don't need your help to get an endorphin release in my body. I can just go for a run. I can go work out. A couple of you look like you go to the gym often. That's an endorphin release when you're working out. You feel great working out, right? And then a day later, you're like, I'm a little bit sore. And then 2 days later, you feel horrible, man. It's bad, right? Yeah, it's bad. Okay. So we can do that. Now, how many of you heard laugh until it hurts, right? Heard that saying? Do you actually know what physiologically is happening in your body? It's really interesting. I read about it, and I thought it was BS, and then I actually read further, and yeah, it's the truth. When you're laughing like that, you are jostling your internal organs, and your body releases endorphins to help mask the pain of your organs being jostled inside your body. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I didn't believe it. I read it. It's really weird. So, anyway, it's a selfish chemical, and that's a problem when it comes to leadership. But it's useful because you can help get the release to make everything work out. All right, dopamine. This one we all know. There's no doubt we all know what dopamine is. And we see it a lot in today's society. It's more and more. Dopamine can be given to you a lot of ways. How many of you are very visual people? You have like to-do lists, little checklists and things like that. Yeah, I see a lot of hands getting raised. Every time you have a to-do list and you scratch something off that to-do list, you get a release of dopamine. Just like that. Every single time. You're like, oh, I got that done. Yeah. Ooh, got that one done. Ooh, I can mark that one off. Awesome. And that's how dopamine works. It's like a reward chemical. But the problem with dopamine is that it's super, super, super addictive. Cell phones are huge dopamine releasers. Every time you get a text, every time that your phone goes off, you get a dopamine release. And if you watch in the videos, what's really funny is they talk about that's why you send out a mass text to 10 people. You'll send out a mass text to everybody, and then every time your phone dings, like ding, ooh, yeah, ding, ooh, yeah. That's a little dopamine release every single time. I'm serious, it's true. But this is why performance incentives work for us, because we are very visual. Humans are a very visual animal. So you talk about, you get that little checklist, and you mark it off, and you get that. Every time you have something to see, something visually, that's why we have things written on the walls. That's why we have vision statements. Because you have to have a goal that you can see. It has to be tangible. And as long as you work towards that, you will constantly get dopamine releases every time you take a step in the right direction. But as I said, it's super dangerous. How many of you, like to the point where you're driving at 80 miles an hour on Mississippi Highway because it's Mississippi and we drive 80, there's no speed limit, it's 80, and your phone goes off, and you look at it. You're going 80 on a 3-lane highway with other crazy 80 mile an hour Mississippi drivers, and you're really like, okay, ooh. That's how dangerous dopamine can be. Video games are really bad nowadays, right? They talk about that? Yes, sir.
Dopamine is actually, I read a study 2 years ago. App developers, that's how they design their games. Mm-hmm. If you've ever played like Candy Crush or those builder games, very early on in the game, you get rewarded very quickly. But the more you go through the game, the reward comes slower and slower to the point where you need that reward. And then that's when they let you know, well, if you want more gems or whatever it is, you gotta pay for it.
Exactly.
That's why they're paying.
Oh, they feed upon it. Casinos. All the bright lights, the dinging noises, you get like some little reward every time. Little dopamine release. That's how they work. They use it against you. But we have to understand that's what it is. But again, dopamine, just like endorphins, is very, very. I don't need somebody else to do it. I can do it. I can make my own dopamine. I can just text somebody or I can just be happy, complete a game. I don't need somebody. And that's troublesome with team building, but you can use it. Serotonin. Now we're going to get into the chemicals that really help to build the team. So serotonin, what do we call it? It's the leadership chemical. This is a good one. We've all had serotonin releases. We've all felt it. This one, just a minute ago, right? When Sergeant Patterson was doing the reward, I was getting serotonin because it's pride. It's something when you get an award. How many of you had an airman that got an award for something? Or one of your friends that you helped on a project and they got recognized for an award? When that occurs, when they are getting their name called and they are getting that's serotonin. How many of you have yourself gotten an award and you're standing there waiting to go up, you're like next in line or something, and you start getting sweaty palms, a little bit of nerves going on, and then they call your name and it's like that heat wave hits you for just a quick second, and then you walk up there and do your shake, take, salute. That heat wave you hit was serotonin being released in your body. Just a rush of it. And that's what's good about it, is it helps to foster team cohesion because you can't do serotonin on your own. You need help from somebody else. And it really helps to create a really solid bond within everybody. What's the other one? The win for the coach. We've all heard that. Like, we're not going to go out and win this game. We're going to win for our coach. Or you have some type of circumstance where you're going to do something for somebody else. Not because you want to do it, because you want you want something for them. And then when you complete that, it's really about them that you're doing it. That's all about serotonin. Pretty awesome. Oxytocin has got to be my favorite. It's the love chemical. Yeah. But this one's all by physical contact. Oxytocin gets released mostly by physical contact. So how many of you walk up to somebody like, hey, just that little thing right there can be an oxytocin release. That's why you high five. That's why you handshake. That's why all deals in the business world, all deals are closed with a handshake because it enforces a bond between two people, and it's just a physical contact thing. It's interpersonal. You can't get it through emails. It's another big one. So if you ever emailing somebody about a project or something going on in your work center and it's not really working out, that's why you get up and go down there and talk to them, and then you get that good, happy feeling from talking to them, like, okay, I feel better about this project and the way it's going, when all the information you just shared could have been done digitally, but you did it face to face, and now that created that bond and that trust. And that's where oxytocin works really well. It also has a really good ability to balance out endorphins and dopamine. So that's very helpful when it comes to when chemicals in your body, the way it works. But then there's the bad one. There's the worst of all, called the big C, or cortisol. And you all know somebody who is riddled with cortisol. It is a guarantee. Normally, it's meant for fight or flight. Cortisol is like just a boost. It sends you into fight or flight, heart rate goes up, it does everything, but it shuts down your immune system, and it starts to really hurt you physically. How many of you have somebody you work with who is a curmudgeon, who is Eeyore? Like, man, it's a beautiful day outside. Oh, I can't wait to go home and go outside and do this. Yeah, but my car doesn't work, and there's going to be traffic going home, I guarantee it. Oh, this weekend's going to be so gorgeous. I'm going to go out in the water. It's going to be fun. No, it's going to rain. I'm not going to go. No, I see some of you laughing because I know you know somebody who's like that, right? You do. You ever hear somebody actually say, like, this job is killing me? Like, oh, because they're always so sad about things. If they're like that, they're not wrong. Cortisol is actually killing them. It lowers your immune system. It starts to shut down a lot of the things that help you, and they've done long-term studies on people who are negative all the time, and they have a higher rate of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. So yes, your job could literally kill you if you let it get to you. You know, some people are just like that. I'll tell you a story from where I work. As an instructor, it's tough sometimes, right? I have 2 civilians I work with, And one has a white beard, like Gandalf beard, and he is just angry at everything. It is, you are going to guarantee if you have anything, any meeting, anywhere, he's making a comment on the negative side of things. No matter how positive you can be, there's always a negative comment. And then there's the other guy who is happy as can be. And you look at them both, and physically, they look completely different. And I thought old Gandalf was like 85. Turns out he's like in his early 50s. And the other guy who's happy is in his late 60s, and he looks physically better than the other guy. It's because he's lived his life happy, not willing to get down. And this other guy just, every day, hey, how's your day going? Well, I woke up today, so that's something. Wow, way to start your day on a good foot, right? Jeez. Hey, good morning. What's so good about it? Duh. You're laughing because you know somebody like that, right? So that's a danger. Now, when it comes to team building and things like that, with being a leader, you have those type of people. They can be really damaging to your team dynamic, can't they? Because they take the best ideas you've got. And man, you could work on this idea for weeks, be super excited, ready to implement this idea like we're going to change the face of the world. Well, Com will probably stop it from happening because it'll be on the network. Dude. Right? What? It happens every time. So you have to worry about those people just a little bit, and you can try to change that. When it comes to team dynamics, you can work to help fight that chemical. But it's pretty tough to do. So how do these chemicals, how do they build a good leader? It's a tough question, right? Because we always said that leadership is really, it's up in the air. It's your own personal beliefs. There's a lot of things. It's independent of anybody telling you what's a good leader and what's not a good leader. So, and you've got to be uplifting. You've got to understand that some of these chemicals can do certain things. You know that endorphins help everybody feel really good, right? Now, how many of you have ever seen it's a meme or it's a picture, the difference between a leader and like a ruler, or a leader and a manager? And it's like an old Pharaoh times where the guy's standing up and they're pulling the obelisk he's on and he's whipping them from up top, and then the next one he's down there pulling it with him. All right, so that's a really good, if you break it down, that's a really good lesson to learn. How many times have you had somebody tell you, hey, I need you to take care of something. I need you to do this task or whatever, and it's going to be really terrible. And I'm going to tell you beforehand, it's going to be really terrible, but I think you can handle it. And then they just walk away. And then you're like, oh, that's awesome. Great, thank you so much for this opportunity. You know, or how many times have you had somebody come in and say, hey, we are going to knock this task out. This is going to be terrible, but we're going to do it together. And then they work alongside you. It's a massive difference, right? The person who works with you, now you get that respect. But what's actually happening to your body is the endorphin release. Because it's something you're doing. It's painful, yes, but you're doing it together. And then it gets into other chemicals too. And so you can tap into a few of these different chemicals at one time. For dopamine, the easiest way to do it is to make sure that you have a very solid vision statement. To make sure that you have, as a leader, you tell your people where you're going, what your intentions are, what your goals are. Because if you can lay it out, spell it out into a way they can see it, or even writing on the wall, things like that, it really works because now we know our mission. We know that everything we're going to do moves in those directions. Not too long ago, they released the 2nd Air Force vision statement and all the writing guides and things like that. That's the reason why. It's because it shows everybody where we're going, what our goals are, and how everything we do in the mission should be impacting the end goal. And so every time you move in those directions, it's basically dopamine release. So it's pretty simple. Serotonin is really easy. What's the thing they always tell us? Praise in public, punish in private? You've heard that? I see at least a few shaking their heads. So that's really in control of serotonin. If I'm going to tell somebody they're doing a good job, yes, you could do it just walking up one-on-one, you have a little second to give them a conversation, you can do that, or you can do it in front of everybody. If you have like a morning meeting or a roll call once a week, that's why they bring people up. Commanders calls, they bring people up for the awards and the commanders calls. That's why. It's controlling serotonin. It's a way to release that and help to enforce team bonding. It's pretty neat when you break it down just a little bit about why we do some of the things we do. And then oxytocin is a really easy one. It's just giving somebody a high five, you know. I give him a fist bump. You've seen that peanut butter jelly sandwich? Crushed it. It's fist bump. Little things like that. Give somebody a high five, pound the back, like, hey, great job. You know, you just do that. Little things like that you might think are innocuous, that might not really be that big to you, are actually big to somebody else. And it can make someone's day. Just that little extra bit of reinforcement to them. And then you got to get rid of cortisol. Cortisol is tough. Cortisol is a hard thing to get rid of because too often people get stagnant. They fall into these ruts and they don't ever want to get out of it. And that's just the way they are, right? So to be a good leader, there's different mindsets, there are different things you can do. Controlling the chemicals, doing this and that, sure, that's a really helpful way. But mostly, the reason why these chemicals are up here is because it can show you a physiological thing that's happening. So we're not just going to tell you, hey, these are leadership. This is what you have to do. Because if you can go a little bit further and know how it affects your body, you can make things work out a little bit better when it comes to giving praise, giving somebody a high five, or punishing somebody, or helping out just a little bit. And then it kind of boils into being the alpha. Some of you said, like, strong leader is somebody who's out front, willing to stand. So what do we know about alphas in the animal kingdom? What's one of the key things about alphas?
Leaders.
They're the leader.
Top dog first.
The top dog. Heck yeah. So they're put in a position of power. Who puts them in that position of power?
Themselves.
A little bit of both. Themselves and the pack. They get put in that position of power by the pack. And they're given that position. Now, with that position, what happens? They're given first dibs on food, first dibs on mate, first dibs on the best sleeping areas, all these things. But what's expected back of them? And this is the most important thing about being the alpha. What's expected back? Protection. Yeah. At the first sign of trouble, who's the first one who goes and meets that trouble? That alpha. And if the alpha chooses not to go do that, what happens? They ain't the alpha no more. Okay? And that can be boiled down to us too as good leaders. How many of you have had somebody, and you say that person, you can think back to say, oh, I really believe this one person in my career has been a really good leader. And one time, maybe you did something wrong, maybe you didn't, we're not here to say anything, but, or you saw them jump out in front of somebody and head off the bus before it hit them. You know, they stood up in front and said, you know what? Okay, I got you. And they went up and said, I got it. Yeah, they messed up. It's cool. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I got it. They took the heat for you. That's being an alpha. Big time. Now, we don't talk about that a lot. Unfortunately, we don't. And I think that's a really big thing we miss out on, is people not willing to stand up for their airmen as much as they should sometimes. You know, yes, there might be a problem. That's cool. If there is, stand up. Hey, I'll take the blame for this. My bad. Sorry, I got it. That's part of being a leader. It's part about being an alpha, which is really important. That I think is, I've seen it lack in the last few years. So with that, you know, being the alpha, leadership in general, and this is a key thing with any leadership, it's not a title, it's not a rank, it's something that's given to you and that you earn from everybody else. Early in the very beginning, we talked about how many of you have junior airmen that just get it? That they have it, they have that something about them. They are leaders already, but they don't have positional power, they don't have any of the other things yet, but there's something about them that they've got it, and you would follow them into the fire, right? And that's really important. That's what you want your people to see in you, and you want your people to feel with you, is that you've got something, you're willing to stand up for them, and you're willing to go, and to be the alpha. So that's really important. So we're getting cut short slightly. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Anything they want to talk about? I see a head shake. Go for it.
I have two questions. The first one is that, like every other person, we want to take charge of our body system as much as we can do. So, how do we take over the release of this chemical in our body system on a daily basis? Like, how much control do we have over that?
We have a lot of control over two of them.
So can we regulate the release of one?
Well, you could do endorphins and dopamine all day, right? You could do those things yourself because they're selfish chemicals and you don't need somebody. But the serotonin and oxytocin you have to have help with. So what we talked about with serotonin, where you publicly recognize somebody, just little things like that, that helps with that. Giving somebody a handshake, a high five, somebody's down, somebody, the Eeyore person that's just cortisol ridden, you give them a hug, something like that. Little things like that. You can control yourself much easier than you control other people. And once you get control of your own body and your own physiology, you can start to help others do the same. Now this isn't an end-all be-all guide to how to do it. It's just something that I think answers leadership very well. Because the longer you're in, and I see some good ranking here, and the longer we've all been in, we hear people tell us what is good leadership. But you're not telling me why it's considered good leadership. And these chemicals, if you understand how they work in the human body, then you start to answer the question as to why. These things, they tell you what is good leadership, why it is actually good leadership. So you can control yourself. It's hard to control other people. And you don't want to manipulate and control other people, but you can make people feel better. And you can work on that. You can slow down cortisol, the people who are in a bad mood, you can help stop that. And you can create a team dynamic by working with them, not telling them to do something. So when you delegate something down, you can help them for a little while. And giving up your time is one of the biggest things you can ever do as a leader to help people out. Anybody have any other questions? You got another one? Any more?
Oh, yeah.
Go, man.
Yeah, I
I'm
have
good.
another one. Okay. Based on the fact that what makes you so excited is different from what makes me so excited.
True.
So that means the situation that is going to cause a release of dopamine in you is different from mine. So as a leader, if I have you on my group and I want you to do this particular assignment with me, but I really don't know how to get you excited to do it or get you motivated to do it. So what would be the next line of action for me to get you to do it?
Okay. Does anybody want to answer that before I do? Go ahead.
That boils down to what he's talking about in terms of what makes a good leader. A good leader would actually start to, for that particular individual, you start to look at the way they behave. You look at what bums them out, what makes them excited. You can look at their record, and then based on all the information that you have, in that instance, you'll develop a way that you can actually motivate that person. Because you're right, everybody's motivated very differently. Some people aren't motivated by working in groups. People prefer to work individually. So if you have a person like that, then you know a group activity isn't going to work. Empowering them, trusting them to work on a task individually might make them excited and will give those release of chemicals that they need. So a good leader has to be able to be adaptable to each subordinate that they have.
I completely agree, because they always tell you a good leader knows their people, right? We've heard this one. That's telling me why something is good leadership. But the why of why that is, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm confusing myself. But to know your people is to know what triggers them and what makes them happy, what they like, what they dislike. If somebody is excellent at computers, they are fantastic at Microsoft anything, which I am admittedly horrible. But if I have somebody I'm working with that is really good, and I know I'm going to, hey, you can help me out with this, bring them along, and I can help take them through all the stages and all the releases just by going through all those things. So it's knowing your people a little bit. The lieutenant's completely correct. That's just something that we always talk about in leadership, is knowing your people. Anybody else?